Hey, this is episode 61 of the Geldof podcast. I'm your host, Stevie Taylor. Welcome to the show. This episode is a cracker, and I reckon you should tell your friends about it. My guest today is Australian drumming great Gordon Rytmeister. When you look at the upper echelon of any field, there's usually a handful of people that come to mind, right? So within the Australian drumming community, Gordo is one of these people. You only need to Google his name to see the enormous body of work he's amassed over his 3+ decades on the instrument. And that work continues as he's still one of the most in-demand drummers around. Attitude, facility and reliability keep Gordo as that first call guy, be it sessions or live gigs for jazz, big band, pop, rock, funk, fusion, even metal. We got together a wee while back and talked for over 4 hours about his career, music, drumming. For me, it was a real lesson in Australian music and drumming history taking place in my own home, and I feel very, very lucky for that. Due to the length of this, I've had to break it up into two parts, with this being part one, and part two will follow soon. So let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm thrilled to give you part one of the Gig Life podcast with Gordon Rytmeister. Cheers. All right, I think we're rolling.
Cool.
Gordon Rytmeister, welcome to the Gig Life podcast.
Thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. Yourself?
Yeah, good.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. I just wanted to start telling the listeners how I know about Gordon Rytmeister and my early experience with you. Now, when Australian Idol came on, I used to watch the band. I didn't used to watch the singers. And I told Mark Costa this too when I spoke to him. I used to just tune in to watch the band, you know. So did my research, found out who you guys were, because I came from New Zealand.
Sure.
And hadn't really heard of you guys. I'd heard of John Foreman because I'd seen him on the morning show.
But yeah.
Yep.
Right, yep.
So anyway, put that aside for a second. I was playing a lot, and I was starting to get really stale on my playing. And I said to myself, I've got to find a teacher, someone around, you know. And I didn't know who that was going to be at the time. And I was up at our local shops, and I saw you there. You didn't see me. You didn't know who I was. Right. But I just saw you.
Okay.
I thought, oh, Gordon Rytmeister lives around here somewhere. Wonder if he does lessons, you know. It wouldn't be too far to go, you know. So I looked you up. I think it was your website or something, and there was a contact page.
Yeah, yep. Right.
Sent contact and then hooked it up. And then, rocked up at your house one day, and I walked in there, and you said, oh, so what do you want to know? And I said, I just want to, you know, I've gotten really stale on my playing and want to learn some stuff. And you said, all right, well, jump up on my drums, put the cans on, and I can't remember what the song was, but you got me to play along to something.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I played along, and then at the end, you're like, oh, well, you know, your feel's good, your technique's good. How about some of this stuff? And you pulled out a sheet, and there was like a Mozambique groove there and some other Afro-Cuban stuff, and
okay.
We worked a little bit through that, and then you said to me, have you heard of Tower of Power? And I said, no, I haven't. And you said, listen to this. So hang on, I've just dialed up a song, and this was the song too. Okay. Right, so you played me that.
That's 4 bars in funk, right?
Yeah. And you got up on your drums and you played that.
Oh,
and
really?
it fucking floored me, eh?
Okay.
Yeah. And I went, fuck, all right, cool. And then you told me a bit about David Garibaldi, and you put me onto the Future Sounds book.
Well, yeah, I imagine, Yeah, that's kind of my go-to thing when people are with the two sound level concept and all that, and the ghost, making less of the ghost notes and more of the accents and so on. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, well that's basically it. And then you introduced me to the Future Sounds book, and I went out and bought it and studied it, and it was awesome, man. It was great. And then there was one other time I went back, might have been a year later, 2 years later. I was getting lots of songs sent to me and having to turn them around quickly and messing up, not knowing how to really write mud map charts, So I went to you and you showed me your sort of, it was almost like a freehand way of just writing these basic charts.
Right, okay, yeah. Wow, okay.
Yeah, so that's it.
Excellent. Well, it's good that you got something.
I sure did. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, man. So, look, what's a week in the life of Gordon Rytmeister these days? Let's just talk about this week, and then we'll go back to sort of early days,
This week's a funny week. I mean, it's always different. I'm about to go into a month of chaos, actually. Glenn Wilson is doing. He's doing Billy Elliot's coming up.
Oh right.
And
stage show.
Yeah.
Yep.
But he's on. He's currently on West Side Story, and he couldn't do the first month of Billy Elliot. Like something happened and the dates. I don't know. The dates got changed. So Michael has a party. Called me and said, "Look, would you be interested in doing a month on the show?" And I've never done a show before.
Oh, you haven't?
No,
right.
Not a proper. Like the closest thing I got was playing with Tom Burlinson doing his Frank Sinatra thing.
Right.
Which is, I suppose it's a show, but it was a concert of Sinatra music with a monologue.
Right.
Him sort of telling the Sinatra story.
Right.
That's another story, but.
Yep.
So so I said, yeah, right. I'll do that. And so this show's there's 8 shows a week, I think it is. 2 shows Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 2 shows Saturday, 2 shows Sunday. Well, how many is that? Anyway, whatever. I can't. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I've managed somehow to fill up every day in between with stuff. Going down to James Morrison's school in Mount Gambier for like a Monday and Tuesday, so that you got to get up at sort of it's a 6 or 7 o'clock flight or whatever,
right,
to Melbourne, then fly to Mount Gambier, do 2 days of teaching, and fly back that night on the Tuesday night to do 2 shows on the Wednesday, and then it happens on one of the Thursdays I've got gig in the day. It's just
man.
Chaos,
crazy. That's must be a little bit like the old days, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it really is, and I'm sort of I'm hoping my body can handle it, because I kind of actually it's funny because I can do some physical work around the house and really kind of strain myself these days.
Yep.
And I kind of worry, but then I sit down the drums and nothing hurts because I've just been doing it so long, I guess.
Yeah,
it's
right.
just, it all...
That was something I was going to ask you about, but later too.
Right, yeah.
Injuries.
Yeah, well...
Yeah, and how you sort of maintain yourself.
Well, maintain, with this stuff.
He's pointing at his bottle of Pepsi Max.
Yeah, that's right.
While I'm drinking my Carlton Draft. This episode was brought... No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I could just about own half the company.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But yeah, so, no 2 weeks are the same. No, I've got 3 kids now and
yep.
2 teenage girls and a boy who's 9. So it's full on. And what I'm finding hard these days is going away on the weekends and stuff. Just missing them.
Yeah.
Growing. I'm seeing them a lot, but you do miss important things. You miss their
exactly
sport days and all that stuff. It gets hard,
Yeah. All right. Well, let's roll back now. I did find some print interviews and stuff that he done, and I can put some links to that in the show notes. And I don't think we need to go through your whole career because it's massive,
Oh, well.
Well. Me and just about everybody else think so. Maybe you don't.
Well,
yeah.
I sort of think I'm having the same career,
Right.
once a year, round and round again.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. But I've got a bunch of topics. I'd like to talk about and.
Am I on mic enough? Is that right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. That sounds good. And I also put it out there a little bit for people to if they had any questions for you. So
Okay, right.
got a few of those, not too many, and I also spoke to some of your friends too. So
wow.
yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Oh no, it's all good.
Okay.
It's all good. Yeah. No, we don't do that here. We don't. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about your early days. Now, music in your family.
Yes. My sister was. I've got an older sister, 6 years older, and a brother, sort of 2 years older. I think my dad would probably have been musical if he'd had the chance, but he's he's a Holocaust survivor from the war, and that's a whole story. But he never got the opportunity to play. But I know whenever we'd visit somebody's place who had a piano, he'd go and sit at the piano and pick out tunes. So I think he sort of had an ear for music and stuff, but never the opportunity, and left it too late, sort of thing. I'll never really know. 'Cause he died when I was 17.
Right. Okay.
Of a heart attack, actually, and so that's another story again. But so really, I think the other thing too was that music seemed to be more predominant everywhere. For anyone, I'm 51. For anyone my age, and maybe 10 years younger, yep. I grew up watching Countdown, yep. and so it was on every week, and everybody watched it. And there were other music shows on, and they all, like music was everywhere. But my sister, so that was the sort of pop music, the Oz rock
right.
and pop music of the day. But my sister had, she was into all the good 70s stuff. Wings, Little River Band, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple.
Right.
Skyhooks, Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan,
right.
Supertramp, Boz Scaggs, Fleetwood Mac,
all the good stuff.
Yeah. Actually, I was thinking because she had the single of Lido Shuffle, and I know you did your Jeff Porcaro show recently, and I was thinking I only just started learning the drums, through school, and I had a teacher there. And I'd learned to play a simple straight eighth rock beat, and like 1 and 3 on the kick drum and 2 and 4 on the snare and eighths on the hats. And my sister had the single of Lido Shuffle, and I'd bought this little stereo from my neighbour, like a little plastic stereo, little record player, and I didn't realise you could play LPs on it because it had this clear plastic lid that I just leant up against the wall, and that was at 90 degrees, so you couldn't fit couldn't fit an LP on it. Right. You could only fit a single on it. Not realising you could take the lid off and put a. So
did you think there was a whole other machine for the LP?
I didn't know what was going on. But so I eventually must have worked it out. But initially, I just played singles on it. But anyway, she had this Lido Shuffle lying around, and I was really drawn to that beat. So I came home from my lesson, having learnt this straight eighth rock beat, and put that single on and started playing along, and realised I had to sort of bend my right hand to make it line up with the triplet, with the shuffle. Right. And that's how I learnt to play a shuffle. Right. So I kind of think I would say I learnt to play a shuffle from Jeff Porcaro.
Yeah, that's cool. Could you hear did you have an understanding of the ghost note type thing? Could you hear that, or was it just the?
I can't remember, but probably more it was the shuffle, like the sense
shuffle part,
of the first and third partial of a triplet. Just getting that. But I sort of understood that mathematically and visually straight away. Like that wasn't a big leap. I understood where that was coming from. Anyway, sorry. The question was about music in the family, so I've already. But yeah, mainly the main thrust of it was from my sister.
Right.
She played guitar, and used to sing folky songs. We used to sing a lot in the car.
Right.
The family.
David Jones told me that you're actually quite a good singer.
Did he?
He sure did.
Well, I'll have to have a word with David Jones.
He told me he said you're a really good singer.
I like to sing. I don't,
Yeah.
and I do. I love the singers. I really.
Do you sing on gigs or sessions? Or
Not really. No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, for a bit of a joke, I have, but not really. I recently did. I work in Glenn Shorrock's band from Little River Band,
Yep.
and we had a gig, and Johnny Bettison plays guitar. And John's a king singer. He's a proper, like, he's a great front man.
Right.
Let alone BV singer. The BVs is Emil Nelson on bass and John doing backing vocals.
Yep.
So we do all the Little River Band stuff. Anyway, Johnny
Bill played piano
and Risby, yeah. Well, and Rex goes, the other guitar player.
Yep.
Johnny couldn't. He double booked himself on this gig, and it was out in Dubbo, and Glenn didn't book, and he didn't. Something happened. There was no second guitar, but it wasn't just second guitar. No third vocal. And Glenn said to me, "Oh, do you want to have a go at it?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, sure." Like a few days out, and then a couple of days later, I rang him back. I said, "Mate, it's
not going to happen."
Not going to happen. I mean, I can sort of sing in tune if I really know the melody, if I really know the part,
Okay.
But it's too, I'm really easily led, and I'll jump on the lead line
Yeah,
instead
right.
of instead of the harmony. If I really know it, I'm cool. But
Yeah.
it was just, it was not my. I'm not good enough for that, But and Risby had a crack at it, so
Right.
I think he struggled just quietly. So.
Yeah.
But you're talking about B. Burrows and
Yeah.
Graham Goble,
Right. There's just that psychology there that on your guys' part, we can't pull this off.
Well, I mean, those guys, Beddoes and Emil, they're proper singers,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not something you just, not something I could just do. No.
Yeah. No. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like the singers. I've always, I'm turned on by great, Donny Hathaway and Stevie Wonder.
Good one. Yeah.
We were listening to Shaka Khan with my daughter on the way back from dancing tonight. Eartha, Sinatra. I love Sinatra.
Right.
I like. Yeah.
Any of the modern day singers?
Look, I'm one of my sort of standard joke lines is I'm basically about 10 or 15 years behind whatever's going on.
Right. Okay.
During the 80s, when I was in high school and everyone was listening to the stuff, I was into Led Zeppelin. That's when I discovered John Bonham. Although, as I say, my sister had the Led Zeppelin record, so I was familiar with that music, but I started playing the drums when I got to year 7
Yep.
in high school, and by that time my sister had moved out of the house, I think she moved out that year. But I sort of, so I'd sort of lost contact with Led Zeppelin in a way when she moved out. But once I started playing the drums, I put on one of her records, having worked out that I could play the LPs, and and Bonham just blew me away.
So was Bonham the guy that made you say, "I want to play drums"?
No,
okay.
No, I'd already started playing drums. No, the thing I was always attracted to the drums.
Okay.
There are a couple of things. There's a guy in my primary school who was later in my high school. There's an older guy called Paul Smith, and he played the drums. And I remember in the primary school, he was probably 4 or 5 years ahead of me. We had a variety concert, whatever, and he got up and did a drum solo at this variety concert,
Right.
and that stayed with me for years,
Okay.
And then he was sort of he would have been my sister's year or maybe a year younger, but when she was in high school, they did a musical which was written by one of the students, and it was a rock musical, and I went along and saw that, and they had the band set up to the right of the stage, and I remember I didn't know what happened on stage all night. I was just staring at the drummer all night, staring at Paul. It was Paul Smith, you know. So, and that was, you know, I would have been still in primary school.
Right.
So I always sort of dug the drums. And then when I got to high school, there was an opportunity to learn them through the school. They had, you know, teachers coming in and doing that. And I think it was $2 for a class lesson sort of thing.
Right.
And I signed up and, you know, really ran with it. You know, I loved it. And my first teacher was a guy called Morrison. And he was great. He's I think he lives in LA now. But he was fantastic. He played traditional grip and he gave us, you know, rudiments and reading rhythms and some rock beats, you know, like a great start, you know, foundation.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah. Kept it interesting. But, you know, I have to say, sorry, what was your most recent question?
Don't worry about the questions, I don't think, because we'll end up bouncing around. And
yeah, well, I can ramble, you know.
Yeah, I guess the first question was just to, you know, how you started out and then you sort of went to Bonham, and I think I asked you, was Bonham your...
That's right, yeah. Well, no, I'd heard Bonham because of... But not... I'd heard him before playing the drums and, you know, I mean, I can remember... I mean, in my street, it was like Led Zeppelin and Status Quo were, you know, the big things everybody was into. And I remember, you know, the beginning of Black Dog and like that. I mean, the fourth Led Zeppelin album was, you know, that had a big impact on me before I played the drums. You know, like I really was moved by it, you know. So I started playing the drums in Year 7 with this guy, Mauro Ruby, and I signed up for the school band and all that sort of stuff. And then must have been sometime in that first year of high school too that I heard Bonham again. Like heard Led Zeppelin having started playing, you know, having started playing the drums, and you know, it was amazing. Then I realised, like, I could, you know, he was amazing. It was because the drum kit, for one thing, the kit sounded like a kit.
Yep.
It didn't sound like a processed 80s, you know. I mean, I was in high school in 81.
Yeah, so what were the bands that you were hearing that had that?
Well, I guess possibly in later high school, but you know, I mean, like all the new wave English stuff was big, like the you know, Duran Duran and
I gotcha.
ABC and Spandau Ballet and all that stuff.
So Lynn drums and Simmons drums and that
and the big gated snare thing and all that.
Yep.
Whereas you heard Bonham and it sounded like a guy in a room playing a kit really, you know, beautifully. And I think, in a way, the thing, like I was always drawn to the groove, you know, like, and I hear it now and it kills me. Like the groove is the thing, the snare sound and the, you know, the pocket is just so beautiful. So yeah, like, you know, it was, I started playing and I learnt some foundational stuff from a teacher. And Bonham and then there was the impact of Bonham. And you've got a beautiful Simon Phillips poster there on your wall.
Do you know how many episodes that poster's been talked about?
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Everyone that sits here goes, "Oh, Simon Phillips," and then I tell the story. And you know,
well,
he's special. Yeah, please go. Yeah.
Go on. You tell
no,
me.
I can say he's pretty special drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my first encounter with Simon was, you know, it would have been probably 1983, so I would have been playing for two or 3 years. And, you know, as I say, I was mad for Led Zeppelin. I mean, I was, you know, I look back now, like I was a zealot and I'd find so much joy and beauty in this music and that I would try to convert people, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, and, you know, some people just don't hear it the same way. So, you know, like I kind of learned, it took me a long time to learn, but I learned that, you know, that's what taste is, you know. But so I was mad for Led Zeppelin, and I remember watching. I don't know if you've ever come across the Ronnie Lane benefit concert for arms.
No.
Well, that would have been '83, I think, and it was a concert for Ronnie Lane. He had multiple sclerosis, and it was an all-star band. But the feature of the band was Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and Eric Clapton, the guitar players from the Yardbirds. And so, you know, I'm a Zeppelin fan. I'm thinking, oh, Jimmy Page is on. This is great. And it was simulcast on Triple M. You know, it was on Channel 10 and Triple M. And I'm watching this thing, and the house band is Charlie Watts on drums and Kenny Jones from the Faces and later the Who. Steve Winwood was on piano. Chris Stainton. Bill Wyman on bass. Ray Cooper on percussion. Like all heavyweights, you know, like English kind of rock royalty, you know. And they're playing with Eric Clapton, and then Jeff Beck comes on, and he's got this guy on drums, you know, with the double bass drum, Tama Art Star, you know, with the big power toms and the wood grain finish.
Is it
sort of the brownie royal, like a mahogany kind of beautiful, you know. And because I had the Tama catalogue, and that was the kind of cool drum, the cool kit, yeah. And this cat playing the drums, Simon Phillips, and I was just absolutely floored because I'd never heard kind of pocket like that. Like he played, they play the pump, you know, that Jeff Beck tune, and it's the first beat we all learnt. It's 1 and 3 on the kick drum, 2 and 4 on the snare, and 8s on the hat. But I'd never heard it played like that, and just had so much kind of grease and groove, you know. And then they played a bunch of other tunes, which I later went on to, you know. But they played Lead Boots and Star Cycle, Hi-Ho Silver Lining, like great shuffle. But that was my introduction to Simon. And I remember just like every time he'd come on screen, I'd have this rush of excitement, like to you know, see him play the drums, let alone hear him, you know. It was just, he was incredible. I'd never seen anything or heard anything like it, you know. So that he had a big impact on me, Simon. You know?
Yeah, my first experience with Simon was my friend lent me his first instructional video.
Yep.
Where he played the stuff off his Protocol album.
Yeah.
He had the headband on, the Tama track pants.
Yeah, right.
You know.
See,
that just blew me away.
Yeah, right. Well, I still think of that as pretty new, and I mean, I think of the Pete Townshend's White City album as sort of new, recent. Yeah. That's 1985, man.
Yeah,
you know, because I was sort of right in there, and I mean,
Give Blood. Fuck.
Yeah.
Because Pino's playing bass on that.
Yeah.
That's a killer track.
Yeah, and Face to Face.
Face to Face. Yeah.
That's also got I don't know how to pronounce his name, Mark Brzezinski from Big Countries on a couple of tracks on that too. Right. It plays great. But yeah, Simon, you know, I mean, I went out and got everything I could. Well, and this is a little routine I tell students about, you know, like from that experience, I saw this Simon on the Ronnie Lane benefit concert. I went into town. There was a shop in town called Utopia Records. It was the home of heavy metal. Right. But they were kind of guitar-y type cats in there, you know. And I went in there and, you know, I lived at Ryde, grew up in Ryde. I caught the bus in, went in there in Martin Place, I think, or downstairs in some joint in Martin Place. I went down, asked them about Jeff Beck, because I don't know how I worked it out, but the song The Pump came off this record, There and Back. And they must have had it in a catalogue or something. I saw this There and Back. Because on the Ronnie Lane benefit concert, there's a guy wearing a There and Back T-shirt. I put 2 and 2 together and went, and I ordered this album. It was an import, you know. It's probably $30 back in the 80s, you know. Yep. Which is big money for a kid in high school. It took, you know, a couple of months to come in. They ring you up. You know, I caught the bus back into town, go in and get this record and put it on. And, you know, I loved it. That's a cracking record. And Simon's really young. It's got Space Boogie on it, you know, the shuffle in 7, double bass drum shuffle. It's got this thing called El Becco, which is a great kind of rocking thing. Another great tune called Too Much to Lose. Like really great, great writing and great playing and really of its time too. Like a fantastic, record. And but that whole thing was a journey for me that took a long time. Today, if someone discovers, Simon Phillips on YouTube, it's you go onto the next link and you're seeing the next thing within 5 minutes before you kind of,
I know what you mean.
So you're not really...
You don't have that time to dig really deep unless you go in there with that in mind, eh?
Well, that's right. Yeah. You're kind of distracted by the lineup of things that are coming on the side. And you don't develop a rapport with it and get it. Like because I lived that. I had it on VHS, that concert, and played it over and over again. Bored my friends to tears with it. Because I couldn't, they were all listening to Culture Club and Duran Duran, or probably Cold Chisel and Midnight Oil, but I'm listening to this sort of English fusion,
See, once I'd watched that tape, I don't know how many times I watched it, and then one day I was just going through Mum and Dad's record collection, and I pulled out this Art Garfunkel record, and there's the song called Misty Nights, and I was looking at the notes and it says drums Simon Phillips, and I went, is it the same Simon Phillips? Obviously there's no internet to go and have a look. Don't know how I found out, but I found that it was actually him, and it's a very simple groove that he plays on it, and it's kind of like, oh, what's he doing there, And at his clinic a few years ago at Canterbury Leagues Club, I got to ask a question.
Right.
And I said, oh, thanks. Hey, thanks for coming. It was great to see you. Now, you played on a track called Misty Nights on Art Garfunkel. Do you remember that session? And he goes, oh, man, I was doing lots of sessions that day. And he goes, but I do remember. I said, the producer was a real asshole because he remembers that. And the producer was trying to get him to position his snare drum on like a really, really tight angle because that's what he'd seen or something.
Oh,
that's what he remembered about that session.
Wow.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
So it was...
Well, it's good to know that stuff happens to him too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, man, what a career. It's one thing to have played on a lot of records, but it's another thing to have played on a lot of, that many significant records, that were musically significant because of your contribution, but also because of the music, I mean, it's, there's some really important things that he did, and man, one thing after another. It was, I mean, even before he moved to America and Toto, I was, I'd been a fan. I had all the stuff that he'd done with Judas Priest and everything, Mike Oldfield, all that, I loved his thing. He had this great pocket, and I realised later, he got a lot of stuff from Billy Cobham and all of that, but that was another fortunate thing that happened for me. Was in high school was that I had this teacher who was just the industrial arts teacher, happened to be what they call our form patron, the guy who looked after our year at school, and he was a music enthusiast, and he was a sound guy as well. And he used to go and do sound gigs and stuff. But he was the first guy. He was a kind of hi-fi, nut, and he was the first guy to have a CD player.
Right.
And he had this, like a Sony portable Walkman CD. And as a result, I'm talking 83, right at the when CDs first hit, And a lot of the early CDs were kind of the high-end jazz labels and like GRP records. And Billy Cobham had signed with GRP. So I got to hear Billy Cobham through this teacher at school. He had these CDs, there was one called, I think it was called Warning, and it had a version of Stratus on it, like Cobham playing, and that had a big impact on me. He also, GRP was Chick Corea Electric Band, and so I heard, just by being in the right place at the right time, I got exposed to Dave Weckl when he hit with Chick in 1985 when it happened, not really understanding it, but I heard it, you know, and I was affected by it, you know, and that was just by virtue of this teacher having these records. He also had, you know, stuff with Jack DeJohnette and a lot of things with Steve Gadd. In fact, I heard Steve Gadd first through him. The other thing he had was a laser disc, the sort of size of a LP.
Yep.
A laser disc, which never really took off here, but it was big in Japan. And there were two concerts he had on. He had a number of concerts, but amongst them were the Simon and Garfunkel in Central Park.
Oh yeah.
Which is
still,
I got to tell you, brings me to tears. Like I'm just so moved by that Steve Gadd.
That live version of 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover.
50 Ways, all of it. I mean, you know, like Mrs. Robinson, like the thing they get going on that, like, you know, it's Anthony Jackson, Eric Gale, Richard T. It's those cats, man, and they played a certain way at that time that was so funky and so together and so deep, simple but deep, and you know, I mean, I say that now. I didn't. I mean, I felt it, but I didn't know what was going on.
I understand.
You know? Yeah. But funnily enough, the other one I was talking about that he had was a Grover Washington DVD. I don't know if you've seen that one, which is the same rhythm section.
Oh, right.
Steve Gadd, Anthony Jackson, Ralph McDonald on percussion, and that thing's killing. Like, it's, you know, but when with those guys playing, it's really meaningful. You know, it's really incredibly deep. You know, the pocket, for me, it was really, really something. And I hear that now, knowing, you know, a lot more, hopefully, but it still gets me.
I know what you're saying.
You know.
Yeah. So how did this did this have a direct impact on the way you started approaching drums yourself?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I was sort of, well, for one thing, you know, I grew up, as I said, like watching Countdown and with all that 70s rock stuff from my sister, and I guess like jazz was not on the radar at all, but hearing, you know, going from sort of John Bonham to Simon Phillips, that was sort of, you know, there were fusion elements in Simon, particularly with Jeff Beck, and then Steve Gadd.
Right.
Steve Gadd, you know, is, you know, it's like he comes out of jazz. He's a jazz guy. It was kind of a foot and a bridge into jazz.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that happened too was I got exposed to David Jones, you know. Right. And still am, you know, really taken with David because, you know, he had this, he was so virtuosic and like, you know, I mean, it's an interesting thing. Like if you just want to talk about facility on the drums, all the cats, Dave Weckl and Steve Smith and various others have gone and seen Freddie Gruber. Right. And, you know, he's a kind of movement guy who, you know, as I say, was mates with Buddy Rich, and I've spoken to Weckl about him because he was a real character. He's not with us anymore, but he was a real character, and he hipped all these guys to stuff that Buddy was doing, and it's just physical stuff. And you see the way Weckl's changed his approach to the drum kit, and Steve Smith, and in a way, like, you know, moved stuff around and all that. Well, Davy Jones was onto that right from the beginning. You know, he was onto that. He had it all going down. You know, so the actual physical part of playing the drums, he had, you know, covered in this sort of Buddy Rich way. You know, right. That's my take on it. But you know, but apart from, you know, then there's the character and the musicality and the know the beauty of it all. Like, so I became a kind of David Jones worshipper. You know, the House of David. And you know, I used to go and see. I mean, how's this for Stalky? I was watching. I got an interesting story about David, which, I mean, it's just curious. My wife's mother was a singer, and she was like a studio singer, did a lot of sessions, but she worked on all the Melbourne Tonight shows and all that stuff. Came up through the years, but later on became, after sort of finishing singing, she became involved in the administration in Channel 9 and all that stuff in those Tonight shows, Don Lane show. And I'll come back to that.
Yep.
So I'm watching the Don Lane show was this Tonight show.
Yep.
I don't know if you
when I first came to Australia, I think it might have. I don't know if it was still on and had come back, but it was on at that time.
Well, there was a later show on Channel 10 that they picked it up, and that was a small group. That was
was probably it.
Victor and Doug Gallagher.
Oh, right.
Jamie Rigg,
Right.
and Clive Lendich, I think, played guitar. But the previous show to that was out of Melbourne.
Right.
And that was a big band, Graham Morgan on the drums, you know. Gary Hyde played congas a lot.
Right.
Bobby Venier on trumpet. Anyway, I'm watching this show and this guy comes on and plays with a band called Pyramid. And I'd never sort of heard drumming like it or seen drumming like it. Like, he had these rubber arms and beautiful flowing round motion, traditional grip, and playing the hell out of the drums, like really caning them, but beautiful grace. And, you know, turns out it's David Jones, Pyramid. And, you know, but then that had a big impact on me. I think I heard him a couple of times in different things over the years. And then I saw him on the news playing in Hyde Park, you know, on a gig at the Festival of Sydney. So I went in to see him. It was like a daytime gig. And, you know, he wasn't there. I went in every day and he came back and did this gig. It was by this time he got into his meditation thing, and it was part of that, you know. It was a band he had called Across Time. Anyway, so I got to meet him, you know, like that, you know, that was sort of real fandom, like, you know. But the story I was going to say about my mother-in-law was that by the time David came on the Don Lane show, she'd booked the band Pyramid to come on the show. And Peter Feynman was the director or the producer of the show. And he bawled her out for putting this jazz crap on. You know, what are you doing? You know, like she got in real trouble for putting this jazz band on. And then the week later he apologised because it was received so well, you know, it had gone over so well. But there you go, that was just a little, ironic connection.
Yeah,
it turns out this was to be my mother-in-law who's responsible for getting David Jones on the TV for me to see, you know.
Gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, where are we at? David Jones. Yeah, I mean, he was, and yeah, and then he'd moved to Sydney when he got into the Raj Yoga thing, and he was playing with Don Burrows, and he'd kind of pulled back from doing a lot of gigs, but he used to do stuff, and I used to go and I had started having lessons with him privately. He was amazing, and I'd go and see him doing everything. I remember in '85, I went and heard him with Crossfire. It was a version of Crossfire that Crossfire had sort of disbanded, or they were just putting it back together every now and then. And, you know, I was underage and snuck into the basement on a weeknight from school. I remember being really kind of wasted the next day at school, like really kind of falling asleep.
Yeah.
But it was my first experience of live fusion, and, you know, the basement was packed. I got to sort of sit on a bar stool right at the bar at the back, but I was standing on the rung to look over people's heads to see the band, and it was just insane. Like I was on this exhilarating high to hear David Jones in full flight, you know, playing this incredible music. It was just, you know, revelationary for me. It was amazing, you know, like moving. I still kind of get
it's cool.
goosebumpy, you know.
Can see it now,
you know. And that was my first exposure to sort of, I suppose, not mainstream pop drumming or, you know, like or rock drumming, like live, you know. So that, you know, that was amazing. And, you know, another guy who came to my attention later, but I missed out on him was Mark Riley when he played with Crossfire. If you ever get to hear the Crossfire live in Montreux, that's some incredible drumming.
Yeah.
Do you know Mark?
No.
Yeah, he died really young. It was
right.
tragic on a motorbike accident. It was terrible. But he was like a rising star.
Right.
But he was amazing. So yeah, that was. I just followed Jonesy around for the next few years, just doing whatever he was doing with Don Burrows, with Mark Isaac's trio. I'd help him out on sessions, like taking his gear around and doing the whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
And having lessons, and he was great. Like he was always really generous. Really giving, and but I was starstruck.
Yeah.
I couldn't work out how to get from where I was to where he was. It was just. It was otherworldly. I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I met David for the first. Did you hear out?
Yeah, I have. Yeah,
right. Yeah. In the cafe. It was great, man. Yeah. Felt like I'd known him for years.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
from the first hello,
Yeah.
He saw me down the street. Stevie. Big hug and.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah,
had a quite a profound impact on me.
Right.
That day, yeah, meeting him.
Well, man, he's had a big. I mean, as I say, like he was ahead of that thing that all those guys caught on to in the States. And I think that's my take on it. But yeah, like. Yeah, he had everything covered. I thought, everything, and high level, and the soloing was just off the scale.
Yeah. Like I told you, David told me that you're a good singer. But what he also told me, because I spoke to him today, rang him today.
Okay.
Was you're his greatest student, he believes.
Wow.
That you're not just a drummer, but just like a true full musician.
Oh, that's sweet. That's lovely, man. I mean,
Yeah, you're one of his favourite people.
Oh, yeah, that's so lovely. I mean,
and he said that what he would show you, you would then go away and deeply research that thing he showed you. So when you came back to him on that thing, it was on another level. Yeah, that's another thing he said.
That's lovely. I mean, I was just in awe. So if he told me to put my hand on the stave, I would have done it. So
cool.
On the flame, open flame.
Yep.
I mean, and I mean, still to this day, like I hear him play, and it's just so unique too. I mean, I suppose I didn't realise, because it became so like everything to me. I didn't realise how unique it was in a way. Like, but I do, like, I stand back now and see it in context, and I see how individual. Because I just thought, well, that's the way you should play the drums, isn't it? So great, I mean, I'm like that. I get affected by anything good. I'll want to gravitate to that. But yeah, I mean, David was for a good 10 years. I really just chased him down, and
that's cool.
Wanted to know more. I was very hungry. Yeah. But go on.
Yeah, and he started throwing some gigs your way and that kind of thing, and you ended up with the Don Burrows gig.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, I was really fortunate. When I left school, I should actually. There's one thing just before I kind of get into that. Like the one pivotal thing that did happen to me at school. So I had this guy, Mauro Ruby, was my original teacher, and then he left, and a guy called Rob Grosser came along, and he continued the same stuff. He's great drummer. He's a nice guy. I ran into him a few years ago at Threadbow, and he's a really great. He used to play with Boss, that band Boss,
right.
And then after Rob, the teacher at the school they got was a guy called John Costa, Mark Costa's dad, and whereas Rob and Mauro were, I guess, more kind of rock guys, like in a way. John was he was an older cat, and he'd come out of big bands. He was actually a big Louis Bellson guy, but Buddy Rich Louis Bellson, but he really dug Louis, you know. And he, I tell this story to my students, but you know, so it was a different perspective on things. And you know, I was kind of the hotshot guy at school and playing in the bands and stuff. But you know, I played in the school bands, but I could read rhythms and drum beats, you know, snare drum parts and so on. But when it came time to keeping my place in a drum chart, I never bothered, because you know, the stuff we were playing in the school band, you hear it once and you go, okay,
right.
like I'll come up with something better than that anyway. You know, that's how, you know, the arrogance of youth. But you know, that's how I felt. So I never really learnt to read charts back then. So anyway, like properly. So then I got this guy John Costa, and he was a big band guy, and he used to run a big band. He'd stopped playing by this stage because he had an injury, but he used to run this big band. And he said to me, "Come down and have a play with the big band," you know. So I go down. It was at West Leagues, I think, in you know, wherever that is. Mum took me down, you know, like set up my drums, you know, a little Maxwell kid, I think it was. And I go down there, and he's putting up Thad Jones charts and you know, Count Basie sort of stuff, and I absolutely blew it. You know, I was like nowhere near it. I was playing through the stops, you know, kept playing at the end of the song. Like, didn't know the idiom, didn't know how to swing. Wasn't really, you know, like it was a tragic, you know, humiliating experience. And there was sort of like semi-pros in this band. It wasn't a professional band, but it was.
Was Mark playing with his dad at that stage? Right.
No. I didn't meet Mark for another few years.
Okay.
You know, but at this point, he and his dad had a falling out. You know, no, actually not at that point, but later on. So yeah, it was a bit weird, but you know, so it was this humiliating thing, you know, and so from that experience until my lesson the following week, I went through the whole gamut of emotions, from going, well, you know, I don't want to play this old time crap anyway, to finally coming around by the time I got to my lesson to saying, well, you know, if I'm going to do this, I need to work out, I need to learn how to do that, you know. So it was a real wake-up call. And I think for me, the pivotal moment that made me pursue it in a way to become a professional rather than just a kind of glorified rock guy, you know,
right.
To do it properly, you know.
Gotcha.
So, you know, those things, while they're devastating at the time, it was great. A great experience in the long run.
Yeah.
So that was the thing. But so I'm really grateful to John for doing that, putting me in that. And I'm sure he knew what he was doing too. I'm sure it wasn't, you know, he was kind of. It wasn't meant to be easy.
Probably a lesson you needed to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So then I basically finished high school and took a year off. As I said before, my dad had died, and so I was pretty in a weird place anyway. Like, it was sudden, as far as we knew then. Although, you know, he was overweight and he smoked, so, you know, like, we know a lot more about that now. But so yeah, I was in. It was at the end of year 11 when he died. So I finished school, and I sort of was in a daze for that whole next year, really, next few years, I suppose. But after leaving year 12, I had my HSC and all that, and I came from, like, the family was fairly, you know, like, I suppose, sort of like, we were all expected to go to uni and get a profession and. You know, be kind of responsible citizens, you know. So the idea of being a musician, you know, I may as well have said, you know, I want to be an astronaut. It was that remote an idea concept, you know. Although I do remember I did get a gig, it would have been in year 11.
Sorry, was that expected of you to have done that, or that's just how you...
Oh, no, I think it was expected. I think it was there. I mean, yeah... like I you know, I quite like drawing. I was sort of interested in architecture and all that. Like because I liked, you know, I was okay at tech drawing at school and all that, and sort of that appealed to me. and I think my mum thought I'd do that, you know. But ironically, I think my dad dying was, we were all so shocked that, you know, I thought, I think even my mum thought, well, you know, you may as well do something you like. Like, he was 49 when he died, you know. I'm 51 now, so, you know.
It's young, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty trippy. So I think my mum thought, well, maybe just try this thing out.
Do what you like.
Yeah, because, you know, if that's it, like, what does it matter?
Yeah, cool.
To a point, you know. But I was going to say, yeah, I remember my dad, I had a gig, one of the teachers at school was a keyboard player, music teacher, and he had a gig in a Chinese restaurant on a Friday and Saturday, and their drummer was away, and he asked me if I wanted to do it. So, you know, we had 2 nights there. It was like $50 a night plus a feed, you know. And I remember my dad saying, like, we're driving somewhere after, and he's thinking, $50, you know, it's not $100. You know, this is like the 80s, you know. I mean, you could buy a house for, you know, 80 grand or something. Yeah. And he said, he goes, oh, you know, do you reckon you could do something with that? You know, I was like it was sort of like, oh, that's, you know, it's not bad for a couple of nights, you know. Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, so anyway, cutting back to, so I finished school, and that next year I deferred. I sort of got into uni on something, and deferred. And I was playing with some original bands, just rock pop music. But about halfway through the year, I got a call from this guy saying, do you want to have a hit with a big band? And I can tell you, from that experience with John Costa to now, I'd really shedded my reading. And I said, yeah, sure, you know. So I came up and had a go with his band, and it went well. And there was a trumpet player in the band called Mike Ryan, and he used to do gigs. He had a Brazilian band, like he lives in Brazil now. He had a Brazilian thing going, and I got into his band. We played Brazilian functions and stuff, and you know, we used to play.
Had you learnt that music, or you just learned it by reading it?
I'd learnt from, by this point I was learning with Jonesy, you know.
Right. Okay.
So, you know, I could play sambas and like, you know, in our Western sambas.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Gringo sambas. You know. But I learned a lot from those guys too, and you know, I guess I had enough sort of facility by this point and enough groove that I got by, you know. Yep. But, you know, we used to play dances and things like that, and you'd play these sambas at, and they were loud, and you'd go for 25 minutes, like on this tempo, you know. So I kind of built up some strength,
stamina, and endurance,
and all that stuff, you know. But so that was cool. The leader of the band was a guy called Tony Gardner. The leader of this big band was a guy called Tony Gardner. He used to do club gigs, cabaret, you know, backing floor shows. So, and he started taking me around and doing gigs. I would have been, you know, 17, 18, something like that. And, you know, go and do these floor shows. And, you know, like, people would sort of turn their nose up at a lot of floor shows, but I really dug that at the time, because it was this, I was kind of being professional and going in and making something of these things. And, you know, I wasn't jaded and didn't yet like thinking, oh, this is, you know, daggy Tom Jones stuff. It was like, oh, cool, look, you know, Delilah, wow, you know. Like, you know, but, you know, and so that was fun, like, you know, it was great fun for me. But so by the end of that year, I'd sort of moved out of the pop bands. I mean, I sort of can't remember how that, I kind of just moving into playing more like professional, getting money for gigs, like doing this these shows, and then I went to the Con to study, which was, you know, at the time the only place you could study the drum kit at a tertiary level in Sydney. It was just way before AIM or JMC or any of those other places, and the Con. Well, there are two things about the Con. One was that Jonesy was there, so I thought, great, I get
free lessons,
weekly lessons free. And The other was the other thing about it that had a big impact on me was that it was a jazz course. It wasn't a contemporary. You know, it was specifically a jazz course. So, you know, I said that Steve Gaddon was a sort of bridge into jazz, and I'd heard Buddy Rich, but I didn't know anything honestly about small group jazz. Really, I didn't know about Tony Williams or Elvin Jones. I mean, I knew their names because I used to read Modern Drummer, you know, or I would read Modern Drummer. So I knew these names, but I didn't know where they stood in history or how, you know, where they stood chronologically even, you know, or what sort of, you know, what was the difference between swing and bebop and post-bop and cool and, you know, avant-garde and modern and hard bop, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I was sort of, it was really green, you know, so so I got into the con and, you know, I auditioned, just got in by the skin of my teeth that, you know, I had to play a bit of piano and know some chords. And I actually, I remember, it was a few years ago now, but like just out of the blue, it occurred to me, because Jonesy was in the audition, right? So that it was Don Burrows, might have been Craig. Well, Craig Scott played with me on the bass. Might have been George Gold. I can't remember who else was that. It was Don Burrows, maybe George and David, plus Craig on the bass. And, you know, we were playing different styles. You had to play brushes and, you know, swing beat and all that. And at one point, Jonesy said, play some funk, you know. So, and that was kind of more my bag, you know. So I played him a funk beat. And it was only years later, and I mean like, you know, 15, 20 years later, it dawned on me, he was throwing me a bone there. He was he was throwing me a lifeline. You know, I was like, you know, man, your swings suck, but you know, show him some funk, maybe they'll get out of trouble. You know, so even though, you know, Don was not a funk guy, he was not a big fan of the backbeat. You know, but there was Jones. He helped me out. That was beautiful. Cool. And I sent him this text in the middle of the night somewhere, you know, saying, I just realised, you know, what you did for me. You know, yeah. But, you know, so, yeah, got to study with David for a couple of years, and I got really exposed to jazz, and I got to learn to like it, to love it, in fact, you know, because it, you know, it wasn't a sound that I would naturally gravitated to.
No, not coming from Zeppelin and...
Yeah. Or you know, mainstream pop, like it was just, you know, like, you know, major chords and like going to this sort of, and I didn't understand what, you know, how the soloing worked and all that. I remember going to see Bernie McGann at the Suit Plus during high school, and you know, he it was Stewie Spear on the drums, you know. So I'm really, do you know Stewie?
No.
Great drummer. He was in Max Merritt and the Meteors. Like,
oh right.
So
okay.
But he was a great old school, like no chops, but incredible ride cymbal beat, you know, like swinging beat. You know. By that stage, he was getting on by that stage, and he could barely walk, you know. But he sounded great, but I didn't get it, you know. I didn't understand. Like, it's, you know, Bernie's blowing over the changes, and I was thinking, what's, like, you know, they're scrambling eggs up there. I don't know what's going on here, you know. So, you know, it was a foreign sound. So, but you know, going to the jazz course hit me till like, actually, I've stolen that phrase from Wayne Shorter, you know.
Right.
Yeah. Am I rambling too long?
No, man.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't got out of the 80s yet, so
it's all good.
Yeah.
I've got all night, man. I'm not working tomorrow. So.
Yeah, cool. Well, I can tell you what happened to me at the con. So
cool. Well, we were talking about the con and how you've sort of now know what all these different types of jazz were, and you're really starting to like it. Yeah,
yeah. Well, I you know, I really, I remember an interview with Sting, seeing this interview with Sting where he talked about jazz and said, you know, it didn't appeal to him either. I recognise that, and he said, I knew that studying it would be good for me, and I think I knew that, so I kind of forced myself through that initial, you know, resistance. But
you ended up loving it.
Yeah, I mean, I really, you know, and I mean, I didn't get loose playing. Like people talk about Alan Turnbull, and I was coming out of David Jones and this slick, clean, beautiful, articulate thing, and there's Alan playing, fast and clever, but like cluttery, this sort of thing. And I didn't understand it. Now I look at it and I go, wow, that's just gorgeous. It's just a beautiful thing. Gotcha. But at the time I was like, or Elvin for that matter. It's like, his triplets don't line up. It's like, it was like, that's illegal. That's to quote Andy Gander. That's right. That's a Gander. He was my next thing was Gander, discovering Gander.
Because didn't he fill in for Dave?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he. I'd met Andy. Funnily enough, at a David Jones gig. It was a thing that he did. He put on with his Raj Yoga people. It was called a Million Minutes of Peace. And it was this concert at the Seymour Centre, and I snuck in there, helping Jonesy.
Did you pay to go to any of David Jones's gigs? Is that what you stuck into everything?
Oh, absolutely. I was working, man. I was setting his tubs up.
Oh, that's right. There you go.
Yeah. Actually, no. I think I did pay. This thing was sold out, if I recall, and I can't remember how. But anyway, I'm backstage, and I heard Andy Gander with Steve Hunter's band, but interestingly, they played a ballad. This concert was a Million Minutes a piece, and they came on, did one song, and it was this ballad, and it was beautiful. It's a thing called Farewell, which Steve recorded on his home base album with Andy. It was beautiful, but Andy came up. I was just like a nerdy guy, school guy, sitting on the side of the stage, and he came up and said, "Hi, I'm Andy," and he introduced himself. So that was the first time we met. So I was just hanging out, but yeah, and Jonesy went to India. He used to go to India once a year or every couple of years, and so one time Andy filled in, and would have been I was at the con in 1988, 89, so it would have been 88 probably, and there were a lot of jazz Nazis at the con, and as I say, I was.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but particularly in those days, they were sort of, these kids out of school, and they jazz was the thing, and they were all into it. And I hadn't, I'd gone to the, I'm loosening up here, man.
It's good.
Yeah, I'd gone to the. I don't want to get into canning people,
No.
So I won't name names. No, but there was a whole jazz thing. But I really felt like an outsider in the jazz world because, as I say, I'd come out of Led Zeppelin and here I am playing sort of Coltrane and, trying to play Miles Davis kind of blues sort of, Jimmy Cobb thing and trying to get what that was or trying to get what Elvin was and, a white boy from Sydney who watched Cold Chisel and Midnight Oil,
And who played funk at his audition.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's funk at the jazz course.
What? That's that guy.
Yeah, that's right. Well, man, I remember cats going, we'd finish class and I'd get into a funk beat and they go, stop the backbeat, stop. That's horrible, the backbeat. No, it was illegal. But, it's funny now because all the New York cats, all the jazz guys play pretty mean funk, these days, and then it was sort of these two different worlds,
Yeah.
But anyway, where was I? I did the jazz course and Andy fills in, but what was great was Andy and I sort of hit it off, because he was a highly regarded jazzer, but he could do anything. He could play anything. He could do anything he wants. That guy. But he was known as a jazzer. And, he come up through the Benders, he was in the Northside Big Band, and then the Benders, which was this, the Benders.
No.
Oh man, oh wow, they were really revolutionary and like post bop sort of hard bop, but odd timey and complex, and Dale Barlow and Lloyd Swanton, Chris Abrahams and Andy, and later Jason Morfitt. But, you know, so they were like these kids, but playing super high level, you know, in the mid-'80s. They were just insane, you know, like high level, sophisticated, clever, modern jazz, you know. But you know, so Andy was this jazzer, and yet he and I really hit it off, which always sort of surprised me because I think he dug my enthusiasm for the drums and all things drumming, you know.
Right.
You know, so we had a great time, and well, I had a great time with him. He kind of hit me to the Gary Chaffee books and sort of polyrhythmic stuff, and yeah, that was a different thing from David. David's, yeah, I mean, I was completely taken with David, but when Andy came along, I recognised it was a great thing because I recognised that here's this other voice and sound that is so equally high level, but completely different. Yeah, you know, and that was a great thing. Yep. I should also say there were other guys at the time. Like I was a big fan of Mark Meyer. Do you know Mark?
No, I don't.
Really? Okay, I must be old.
No, I just need to get out more, maybe.
Well, you know, look, Mark's moved back to Adelaide. Mark was this great drummer from Adelaide, and he played with a band called. He was in Moving Pictures.
Oh, right, okay.
But he played in a band called Chasing the Train, and I was lucky because by the time I was sort of old enough, aside from sneaking into the basement, that our local pub was the Bayview at Gladesville,
yep.
and Chasing the Train used to play there a lot. Yep. So I used to go and stand on, you know, next to the dunnies and just stare at Mark all night, you know, playing the drums. Years later, he said, "Oh, I thought you were gay." Just
checking you out, man.
Checking him out, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was, you know, I mean, and that, like I was like that. I just look at the drums all night. It wouldn't matter,
right.
You know. But like Mark was this beautiful, hard-hitting, like really passionate, articulate drummer. Like Mark's got this. Nothing he plays is sort of particularly complex or not understandable, but and it's the stuff that most people can play, but he just plays it with this conviction and beautiful, unique touch and time. Like he's a time machine. It's beautiful. Like
I think a lot of people actually say that about you.
Oh well.
I mean, apart from the stuff that people can't understand you play because you can play some, but I mean.
Well, that's lovely, but I mean, I'd say that's something I got from Mark. You know, I mean, you know, I've got something from everybody. I've ripped everybody off.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. But yeah, Mark would play. That's nice to know. But you know, thanks.
Sweet.
But I think Mark would play these things, and it would just mean so much. Simple things that meant so much. You know, and I love that. You know, but I was sort of, you know, that was more the rock sort of funk thing. Mark was a big little. They played a lot of Little Feat in that band. That was Mark was a big Richie Hayward guy.
Yeah, right.
Or they were a Little Featish type band. They played a lot of Little Feat stuff, and you know, I mean, I dug Richie too. I got into Richie in later high school too, and funnily enough, you know, it's sort of not hip to say it. Like everyone says, oh, Little Feat after Lowell George wasn't the same, but I got into them after Lowell George had died, and you know, it was fine by me. Richie was beautiful, you know, like late 80s, like the Let It Roll record, and the couple after that representing the Mambo, and you know, they were, you know, I loved him. He had a great way too of playing things that are sort of everybody plays, but having his own take on it, you know. Yeah. But I was, I suppose, in my own playing by this, but just because I was in the jazz course and I was in those circles, moving in a more jazz kind of a direction, I guess, you know. And I, you know, as I say, I learned to love it. I got, you know, started working around town. I got into Mike Knock's band, which was, you know who Mike Knock is, being a Kiwi and all that. Much to the chagrin of many of the jazz policemen at the course, because it's like he's this suburban rock guy playing.
Getting with Mike Knock.
That's right. Upset everybody.
Yeah. So how did How did you get that kick then?
Well, he was teaching at the con. He was one of the teachers at the con. And it was a funny thing, man, because Mike, how can I say this? I mean, yeah, I often say, like, I learn a lot from Mike despite him teaching me.
Right.
Mike could he could say stuff that would confuse you more than shed a light. But I got a lot from him, and probably more playing in his band than in the classes, And there'd be times when we'd be in the class and he'd just harangue me all day, like he'd be
right.
he'd be on me, and he said, "No, man, no, hey, man, like, yeah, whack it, man, like, no, lay out, like, it was, and there'd be times like I was sort of, I'm just out of school, I was a year out of school, and like some kid, and I'm thrown in with these sort of heavy jazz people, and I don't know what I'm doing, but he'd be, like there'd be times I'd think I played okay that lesson that in that class, and he'd say it was terrible, and there'd be times when I'd think it was terrible, and he'd say that was great, and there'd be times when he'd say it was great, and I thought it was great, and there'd be times when he thought it was terrible. So it was like every combination.
Right.
So I couldn't work out what was good and bad, And this sort of culminated to the point where I was about to sort of tell him to stick it, and he said after the class, he said, "Yeah, I got a gig next week. You want to come and do it?" So
cool.
and so I did this gig and then joined his band, and that was a cool band. Cameron Undy played the bass. Cameron, who runs the 505 now.
Do you think he was testing you?
Oh yeah, that's his thing, man.
Right. So he was fucking with you on purpose.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
to a degree.
I think I think he wanted something, but he didn't necessarily know how to say it.
Okay.
I don't think he's been mean.
No, not being mean. Just testing you, making sure you're the guy.
I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, I'm not the first. Like everybody's gone. Everyone who's played with Mike knows that thing.
Right.
But that was a great experience playing with him because it was sort of. That was modern jazz, and by this stage, I'd sort of, as I say, I kind of got my reading together for big band and stuff, and I was pretty confident with all that, where I was kind of getting cocky, I told the story of my audition for the Con Big Band, Ralph Pyle loves this story, and he got me to tell it the other day up in Brisbane. I was doing a gig with some cats up there, and they wanted to hear the story. Or Ralph said, tell them the story. But so Don Burrows they auditioned the drummers in the course for who would be in the big band. And so Don tells us, Don's taking the band, and I'm listening to the other guys playing, and I'm thinking, he's not giving it enough grunt. I'm going to smash this, And I was, as I say, I was pretty confident with my reading and stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm going to kick this. I'm going to get in there and belt it. This is going to be great. So I get in there, and he calls a chart. That's called half and half, which is half swing and half Latin, half a samba thing. And the other thing I should say is that in those days, the Con had these. The drum kits at the Con, they weren't bebop kits. They had these 2 Tama swing stars with 22-inch kick drums and no front head and nothing inside them. Right? So, we get into the samba and I'm going, like building it, And at the end, Don Burrows leans over and he says, "Yeah, sounded good." He goes, "Sounded good, mate. A little bit heavy on the bass drum there, And I said, it's like a kid, I said, "Oh yeah, well there's nothing inside it. There's no pillow inside it." He said, "Yeah, because you blew it out the fucking door." He said, I've told Don that story in recent years. And we've got to get a laugh,
Right.
Yeah, it's great. But anyway, where am I? I mean, I could just talk about the Con.
Yeah.
But I joined Mike Knox's band, and Gander had played in Mike's band before, and it was amazing. It was incredible. But that's the kind of jazz tradition, is to get some young cats in and then move on.
Right.
So but I learned a lot about modern jazz, because as I say, like I sort of played big band and swing, you know, and you know, and there's different types of big band as well, but I'm talking sort of Count Basie, you know, straight ahead, you know, that sort of thing. So to play modern jazz was with Mike, you know, there was a lot of nuance to it. It was great, you know. I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from Roger Frampton, who was there, who ended up being my father-in-law.
Right.
And Jonesy, and you know, and I met Gander, so it was a great thing.
Mm.
But once I'd finished the jazz course, I was really kind of working in that scene more than the pop scene, which was weird because I still, you know, I'd never left pop in my head, but I was just in that circle by that time.
Right.
By that time, and I got into the house band, the house trio at the Don Burrows Supper Club, which was Ray Aldridge and often Gary Holgate or Lloyd Swanton or Alex Hewitson on bass, and we used to back a lot of different acts and stuff and playing straight ahead. So that was, you know, a great experience playing small group mainstream jazz.
Yep.
So I was doing that. I was playing with Mike Knox's band. There's this great club at the time called the Blue Note, which wasn't affiliated with the Blue Note and probably these days would be sued for it, you know.
Right.
In King Street it was. There's a bunch of clubs. There was the Blue Note, the Real Ale Cafe and the Suit Plus, all, you know, 300 metres from each other. You
Right.
know? But the Blue Note was this great room, and Mike Knock had a gig there on, I think it was Wednesdays, and Andrew Spate had a bebop band there on Tuesdays, and the manager, who was a crook, you know, but he said to Andrew, "Can you bring us in something that's a bit more contemporary, fusiony, not fusion, but jazz, but not, you know, for a Thursday night." And so Andrew put this band together called Splatch, and Splatch was one of the tunes from a Miles Davis Tutu, from the Tutu record. And so it was me and Alex Hewitts and Marty Love, who recently tragically,
away,
man. That was wild. That's, you know, Marty played keys. Paul Thorne or Greg Thorne, depending on when you've met him. He changed his name.
Oh, right.
I think he was actually originally Paul, but when he came, he was in Kiwi. When he came here, he called himself Greg, and everyone called him Greg, and then he changed it back to Paul, which confused everybody. Spady on percussion Spady on saxophone, alto sax. I said everyone, Alex Hewitts, and Ben Butler on guitar. Ben's now in New York doing great things over there. And the singer was Eartha Clark, who you would know, right? I assume all Kiwis know all the Kiwis. Barry Leaf, Eartha.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we got this, you know, regular gig every Thursday night, and playing at the Blue Note. It was a great club, and the band was great. And we played the sort of latest Miles stuff from the 80s, the Tutu, and I don't know if might have even been before Amandla came out, but it was Tutu and Man with a Horn, those sort of things, and so the funk sort of hip hoppy Miles, and we played David Sanborn things and whatever, and then Eartha would sing as well, so it was a great combination of this sort of instrumental fusion stuff and kind of that contemporary slick vocal music, you know, groove music. So whilst I was sort of working mainly in the jazz world, and I'm not sure if... No, it wasn't... So I'm working mainly in the jazz kind of thing, doing the house band at the Supper Club, Don Burrows Supper Club, playing with Splatch, playing with Mike Knock, filling in. I got some calls like back then, filling in with James Morrison and even Don Burrows when David couldn't do it, and you know, and things for Andy. Like Andy was, you know, he went out with Vince Jones, and so he'd throw me his stuff. So I was playing, you know, a lot of Spangalang straight ahead.
Yeah.
You know? but anyway, but Erina's thing was kind of getting back to a backbeat, getting back to that. And because Erina was there, she was doing a lot of studio work at the time. All the kind of studio cats would come down and see the band.
Right.
And that kind of got me into that circle.
Right.
So I sort of, started working with people like Phil Scorgi, who had a band called The Right Stuff, was like a funk band. And Doug Gallagher had played in that before, and he's great drummers, Doug. It was really, there's a pocket, man. There's a serious musical pocket. Do you know Doug?
No.
Really?
No.
Man, I mean, these are all names that are just so front and centre for me, and were for years. There's a lot of guys, and this is the great thing about what you're doing.
It's putting a bit of spotlight on these guys too.
Yeah.
So I'll go away now and
because man,
look them up.
I mean, people of my generation who are around know about they know about Mark Meyer, they know about Warren Daly, they know about Will Dower and Doug Gallagher, and I don't want to leave anyone out, but there's there was just all these cats were doing great things, and for a long time and doing it at a high level. Do you know about Warren Daly?
I've heard the name Warren Daly.
Wow, man! I mean, he's the king of big band. He's the swingingest big band guy, and he was, he was really important historically. I think and I'm not saying that because I understand why people can't know about this, but about these guys, but. I see that in students too, where students they'll know about Buddy Rich and Steve Gadd and Bill Stewart, but they don't know about Tony Williams. It's like, well, how does that happen? But I can see I can see how it happens, but it's sort of all these things I take for granted. They're just part of my my background. Like Doug and Will did the midday show forever.
Right.
It's like Graham Morgan in Melbourne and Ronnie Sanderlands, and they were kind of fixtures, those cats, working guys, but like classy, Yeah, so like at the same time as doing the sort of mainstream jazz work, a bit of modern jazz work, a bit of fusion, whatever around town, I'm getting called for like jingles and bits and pieces like that. Like that's starting to happen. Not so much albums then, but jingles and little bits and pieces, and that was great experience. Like I thought it was pretty cool being a session guy. And by the time which is talking like 1989. So by the 90s, I can't remember exactly when it happened, but probably around about 1990, early 1990, Jonesy left Don Burrows' band, and they offered me the gig. I'd sort of filled in a few times for David, and got the gig, which was amazing. Like I was how old would I have been? 20, 21 or something like, and through Don, I mean, like in a way it was sort of. I was touring at a comfortable level from out the gate. Like he was doing things comfortably. We were staying in nice places and everything was smooth and run well. I was getting paid well. I blew a lot of money on CDs, I can tell you. Right. Like, man, I used to get paid and go down to Birdland Records and drop $500 on records, kids wouldn't understand that now. It's like, right. What do you mean you paid?
Got a $50 iTunes card.
Yeah, that's right.
I just spend it all on one session.
Yeah. So I was listening to a lot of music and getting right into a lot of music, and so started working with Don, and so touring with Don in those early 90s, and we went, did a lot of a bit of international stuff. Went to New Zealand, and did run with. We did a couple of gigs on our own, but then did a run with Louis Belson and Anita O'Day, and Bill Stewart was there with John Schofield and all that. So I kind of saw some cool stuff, and got to have dinner with Louis Belson, which was amazing. He's the gentleman everyone says he was. Did a lot of touring with Don, and he didn't tour that hard though. So like you might do sort of 6 nights somewhere and then nothing for a month, and then a couple of nights in town, and then the next month you do a couple of, like a 2-nighter and a 4-nighter or something. So there's a bit of that. Yep. And that was cool. I was sort of earning proper money and still living at home. I was kind of everything was pretty easy. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I was right into the drums. I was just mad for it, and music. I was just soaking everything up. And I did that for the next couple of years, and then I started. I remember, Hamish Stewart there's another drummer, man. Hamish, Yep. Have you interviewed Hamish?
Not yet.
Yeah, man. Yep. I mean, when we used to do the supper club, I remember seeing him. I used to be in the house band in the supper club with Ray, and I remember seeing they used to have 2 bands a night, and Hamo would play. He'd come in after us and play with Erin Clark in Erin's band. And I remember hearing him one night with Mark Costa on the bass, and man, it was so deep. Like, wow, like that was a groove. And Hamish was doing everything at the time. He was everywhere, and so was John Watson. You know about Watto?
Oh yeah,
yeah. So
I've recently connected with Watto on Facebook.
Great, yeah. I ran into him a couple of months ago in Adelaide. He was in good form, man. Yeah. He's a cracker too. But Hamish, really, the sort of working guys, and I'm talking about not in the jazz scene necessarily, but the working cats around town was Hamish and Watto in the late 80s, early 90s. Right. I mean, Gander was doing a lot more in the jazz scene. That was the other thing that happened with Gander, was that he moved to Melbourne to do Steve Vizzard. Right. Which left a big hole for me. Yeah, right. Awesome. Like in Sydney. Like, he and I had become really good friends, and although, I was in awe of him. Right. But, we were good mates. But, yeah, he'd moved to Melbourne and was doing Vizzard. I think he did that. Well, I did it 93, and then Nico was 92. So, and Andy did it for 2 years, 2 or 3 years, probably 2. So it would have been 92, 91, 90. So yeah, he would have moved to Melbourne. So that's like I picked up a lot of work because David was backing out of stuff, He
concentrate on his thing.
Yeah, both. He really had gone hard in the late 70s, and I think I mean, if you ever talk to him about Pyramid and stuff like that, I did. Yeah. That really hit him hard when all that fell over, Yeah. And this was sometime later, but yeah, he was sort of, kind of on a path of discovery, I guess. I hope I'm not talking out of turn, but
not at all.
Yeah, so he was pulling back from a lot of stuff, and just picking and choosing things he wanted to do artistically, and he was a great working drummer, like Virgil Donati, like they were great sort of, just notwithstanding the technique and the artistic thing that they both had all along, and then developed further. They were great, tradesman drummers too. Like they could go and read anything and do the right thing. They were classy cats. They are classy cats, I should say. But yeah, David was sort of pulling out and doing more artistic things that he wanted to do, and Andrew had moved to Melbourne. So there was this sort of gap for people who played played that style, like, and
Right.
you know, and I was having a crack at it, I suppose, of sorts. But you know, and Steve Hunter, like Andy had played in Steve Hunter's band. I got the gig with Steve. I got the gig in Steve McKenna's band. I was playing with Dale Barlow. And the Harbourside Brasserie was open, this club down at under the Harbour Bridge, and that was a scene, and that was a great vibe down there. And all of those bands, we'd work there all the time, and people would come out, man. Like, we were getting good crowds, and so I'd usually be there at least sort of like once a week, or you know, like maybe 3 times a month at the Harbourside Brasserie with someone or other doing.
Right.
You know, not just like we're playing and people are coming to see us play, sort of thing. So that was a great scene in the early 90s. Lots of cool stuff going on, and I was just having a great time. I was playing with these bands and working on, like, all I had to think about. I didn't have kids and family and mortgage. I was just all I thought about was the drums and you know how I could play with these things. All I had to think about was getting my drums there and you know, learning some music and like music.
They're trying to get home.
All that, mate. Yeah, it was a good time. And I'd go from doing sort of fusion gigs to kind of pop gigs. I was also in Karen Minshall's band at the time, and she was a singer around town. She's still around, but she was singing a lot. And she had a band with Alex Hewitson. And we, you know, they were getting a lot of work. We'd work up the Cross. We'd do the late show at the supper club. So sometimes I'd be there at the supper club doing the early show and the late show, and, you know, with different bands. You know, it was just a great time. You know, it's like, I mean, it wasn't uncommon to be doing, you know, 15 gigs a week, like just running around from gig to gig. I had a regular little standards gig on a Saturday afternoon at the White Horse Inn in Surrey Hills, and I just, you know, playing with, you know, these old cats. Well, I thought they were old cats then. Playing straight ahead jazz, like mainstream jazz, doing Sinatra things and standards, and John Away played the bass, and yeah, it was great, man. You know, I learned a lot of stuff. One of the things that happened because of doing so much work, doing so many gigs, was I kind of got sick of my own playing. I kind of got sick of resorting to the same things.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's why I came and saw you.
Yeah, right. Well, but, you know, I mean, I guess I remedied that by, I have to say, like, by getting deeper into the groove. I like by loving that more, you know. So I think there was a time when I simplified my playing to just concentrate on that. And you know, I was always deeply moved by Steve Gadd. You know, he was the cat for that. You know, for the, like, it was. There's something about him. It still is. You know, like, it's so sincere. You know,
I was thinking for the next spotlight series that we do, I want to do Steve Gadd.
Yeah.
So would you?
Oh man, I'm there in a shot.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Had you on my mind about that one.
Oh mate, yeah. You know.
Before we sort of segued off into that, and I was.
Yeah.
I think were we talking about Mark Kennedy?
Well, Mark was. I had the Kirk Laronge no apostrophe record. I think maybe my sister had us. You know, I stole it from somewhere, but that was Mark Kennedy on it. You know,
right?
Like he was ahead of his time. You know.
Yeah.
And have you spoken to Mark? Like,
I haven't spoken to Mark.
Right.
I've tried to contact Mark.
Right.
When I had Johnny on here for his like solo interview, he spoke a lot about Mark, and because Johnny used to just follow Mark around town.
Yeah, that's right.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Setting his drums up.
He was a boss, Mark, you know, and I mean, you know, the Ayers Rock stuff. Mark and Hamish, you know, Hamish followed Mark. They had, you know, Mark's got this Richie Hayward thing too, like a different take on it from Mark Meyer, you know. But you know, there's sort of deep. There's the deep love comes through when you hear those cats, and it's a love of the musicality of it rather than the technique of it.
Yeah, I understand.
Because it's easy to get taken by the technique of things, you know. And I think people do these days, you know, like in a way that, I mean, Buddy Rich is undeniably, you know, stands up in any era. Like the facility, not only stands up, probably shreds. Actually, you know, I've got this ongoing argument with James Muller about, you know, who's technically better, Vinny or Buddy Rich. You know, I mean, it was just we have a laugh with it, but you know, it's only been going for about 15 years.
Right,
but,
Vinny's got more splash cymbals.
I mean, you know,
and a side snare.
I say it with my tongue firmly in cheek because it's know, it's about who they are as musicians. But but you know, there's this great drum channel's got they found this Buddy Rich TV show that was produced. He did a show with guests and stuff, and they're all jazz people like Ella Fitzgerald and Lionel Hampton and
really?
All that. And they found the tapes. It was never aired, and they found it and put it out on DVD. And there's a couple of clips of it, but there's a clip of them rehearsing with Lionel Hampton. And two things struck me. One was that it's just rehearsal, right? So they're kind of chatting as they play. One was that Lionel plays this solo, and there's nothing extraneous in it. It's just a beautiful line, making all the changes, melodic, you know, swinging through this line in a logical, like as if it was a written solo, but it's not. He's just mucking around. He's just sort of chatting and playing this beautiful thing. That was one thing. The other thing is that Buddy's playing time, and he's not. It's not. There's no soloing in this clip. It's not. It's just Buddy playing time, and it's the deepest, swingingest, drivingest, you know, grooviest swinging time. You know, and like I know James Morrison's good friends with Jeff Hamilton, you know, and Jeff Hamilton worked a lot with Ray Brown, and he said to Ray, "So who was the best drummer you ever played with? You know, who had the best groove?" And he said, "Well, Buddy Rich." And he said, "Not the Buddy Rich, you know, as in the show chops guy, but just for time and pocket, like playing swinging time, there was nothing like it, you know." And I know exactly what he means. Like, you know, it's just, I love that drive of that pocket, you know. And when Buddy, you know, there's a great line, you know, I'm jumping around all over the place, but there's a great line I think it's in the 10th anniversary of Modern Drummer.
Right.
Which again, I still think of as recent, but it's got to be 1988. There's an interview with Steve Gadd, and he says, you know, a good groove cuts through a whole lot of bullshit, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, I really, that's how I'm thinking.
So
these
true,
days,
eh?
you know? Yeah, well, I think so, you know.
Well, that concludes part one of the Gig Life podcast with Gordon Rytmeister. I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. Can't wait to bring you part two. Coming really, really soon, so stay tuned. Talk to you soon.